Dungeons and Dragons players of Reddit, what is the most creative character you've seen someone play as? Part 2. His name was the Brown Arrow. He was an archer that was clumsy and rarely was at range. I swear his love for Batman got the better of him, because he always wanted to acrobatic his way up close but had terrible rolls, so it was a lot of flopping and crashing through windows. His ability, as you could assume from his name, was to make enemies shit themselves whenever an arrow would barely miss its mark. Was a short-lived campaign, but man was it a clown fiesta. A camel. Not just any camel, but a racing camel named Rocket Boots. We had a party member who was inconsistent about showing up for the games, and he showed up in the middle of a short campaign we were running after we had retrieved a stolen racing camel. It's hard to say exactly what it was, but the guy went ham role-playing this camel, making camel noises and doing camel things. It was absolutely hilarious. An elf. When in reality his character was en route to a Star Trek convention when he was whisked away to the DnD universe by a wormhole. Elves were uncommon in our universe, so the party never encountered any living ones, and anytime he claimed to be speaking in Elvish it was actually Klingon. I once made a paladin that was totally blind, except for the fact that he could see through the eyes of his horse. Together, they were a formidable duo. But if they got separated, a total shit show. In my current campaign, one of my players is a mimic chess named Chester. He loves the character and has so much fun hopping around biting people. 2 people in our group independently chose to name themselves Han and Hien. Han decided to run with it, and named his horses Hone and Huan, and his familiar Hien. It was all very confusing, but totally worth it when our DM introduced an NPC whose nickname was Hawaiian. aka, sometimes Hawaiian. Centaur Ninja. Now you're thinking, large race, hooves, probably one of the worst combinations of class and race. This motherfucker never gave up on his quest to become the world's best ninja. The cards were stacked against him, but he was played really well. It was to piss off the DM specifically for trying to force someone to be a ninja for their campaign, but he grew on everyone. Eventually divine intervention happened. The god he worshipped gave him silk wraps for his hooves. Knocked off all the minuses he had. Gert Mad Marks Dangeronica. Fucking Gert. Mad Marks. Dangeronica. A militant 7'4" lesbian, armed with a sickle and hammer, looking like the unholy offspring of Zeriah from Overwatch and Arnold Schwarzenegger. On a committed mission to bring communism to the impoverished denizens of the survivors of England, through violence. She also did nothing but murder men for every month of the year except for March, which was the breeding season during which she'd fuck them first. As a GM, it was the first character that honestly made me reconsider my life choices. And this was in a game that had Willem Dafoe harvesting stem cells from aborted fetuses to stay young. I played a human fighter. He was a carpenter, had a wife and children. He was a really kind man. So kind, in fact, he didn't carry a weapon. He was non-violent. His flaw, however, was that he had a massive malignant brain tumor pressing on his amygdala. Since they didn't have CAT scans in this universe, no one knew that he had inoperable brain cancer. Whenever our party was in a situation that caused great stress, like combat for example, my character would slip into a sort of trance and go on a rampage in the battlefield. His was absolutely stacked in combat, so he would absolutely clean the hull up when it hit the fan. The gentle carpenter would turn into a snarling, mumbling maniac who royally shitted on anyone who dared oppose him. He would come out of the trance with no memory of the fighting. Since he didn't carry a weapon, this required some creativity, so I made my character a master of improvised weaponry. Before combat, I would ask the DM if there was anything in the room I could lift above my head. Whatever was nearest is what I would use as a weapon. Chair, stones, dead enemies, femur, you name it. My character was a whirlwind of bottles, debris, and the occasional small animal. A true force to be reckoned with. His name was Buin the Machine Rodriguez. Friend of a friend played as a monk who accidentally killed someone and was now a pacifist. He wouldn't take part in battles, but instead would just rate the others on their performance. Solid hit. 8 out of 10, should have gone for the smaller guy first. 4 out of 10. It wasn't in his backstory, he kind of fell into it because of the party and he just leaned into it hard. Half-orc barbarian, with intelligence of like 6, who became convinced he was a paladin of the god Khorne. He meant God, because the sorcerer in the party had the wild magic tray and the magic effects kept aligning with the barbarian's goals. Like one time the barbarian was trying to kill some townsfolk who he was convinced were evil and the wild mage tried to sleep him, or something to that effect, to prevent him from killing innocent commoners, and instead the wild magic shocked both of the townsfolk with a lightning bolt and killed them. So to the barbarian, he just saw his god smite his enemies. It was uncanny how well the player made it work and how often the wild magic rolled in favor of his low intelligence character seeing signs from God. Tabaxi swamp druid that took magic initiate, wizard just to gain access to find familiar and get an ethereal house cat. We call her the crazy cat lady. Friend was a hobbit with the ability to once a day pull anything from his bag, which could reasonably fit. Problem was, why does a hobbit have these things? Naturally he made a character a kleptomaniac who constantly took everything in sight. Got us all in a few scruffs along the way. Concept wise, a dwarf rogue who was amassing precious metals and gems so he could have a perfect metal wife crafted for himself. Gave a nice goal to a neutral character. In Pathfinder, an Undine hunter war priest who had an unfortunate set of circumstances. He had trained as a druid but set fire to a grove, so he then started training with a ranger, but accidentally killed his animal companions. After he destroyed a dam and flooded a basin he got kicked out and traveled with a hedge mage, then showed up one day in town with a chicken under one arm named Frienda, and wound up espousing the glory of a god of knowledge. No one ever guessed that he was evil, or questioned why there was only one accidentally in his backstory. I've seen, and played, some creative ones. A cleric who didn't know he was a cleric, he just thought he was a farmer, very religious and lucky. A psionic centaur. A hard-boiled, spellcasting, detective. A dual-class healer thief who would pick pockets as he theatrically healed people. A jester who was actively working against the party in plain sight. A para-elemental mage who focused on smoke and had all sorts of smoke-related spells. A bard who didn't know he had magic powers. While performing the lead in a play lore-specific Robin Hood, his character took a serious blow to the head and came to believe he was actually Robin Hood. He ran off into a remote lumber town to live in the forest and recruit people into his gang to fight the evil sheriff. Sheriff of Woodhurst is actually a pretty nice guy and Robin Hood is pretty much considered a crazy, egotistical hermit who lives in the woods and plays pranks on the sheriff. Anyway, his boisterous speeches manifest his bard spells but he doesn't realize it is magic and just thinks he is just that awesome. But the characters meet session. 2 players were sent by the Bard College to find him and it provided something more interesting than everyone bumps into each in a tavern. At a convention, my wife played a mentally challenged thief. The game was a benefit for charity. I loved it when she asked why she could not steal in the town, as the group was raiding orc encampments. I DM'd a campaign that I allowed a guy to bring in his dwarf and fight a thief. He liked to kick indoors. I got him with a trap that dropped a 10-foot cube of stone when the door was opened. Another good one was the LG High Cleric in love with his leg counterpart in the city. Both males, and fighting each other all the time when outside the bedroom. It's frustrating as hell for me the DM but it's really interesting for me the author. I have a player who plays a female halfling rogue assassin. She's street smart and no nonsense. She's a knife in the dark, an arrow in the crowd. Except my friend is nothing like this. My friend playing this character is very nice, sweet, very caring. She majored in sculpture and works at a non-profit. So her badass rogue has all these undertones of caring and understanding. She's racked with indecisiveness. Like, Willow, I find the meanest person in the thieves tavern and try to steal his coin. DM, he's homeless. Willow, oh no. I say, can I assist you sir? DM, he doesn't respond. You detect the aroma of moon salts. Willow, I ask, are you a moon salts addict? Do you need help? DM, he slumps over in his chair. Willow, I drag him to the nearest rehab clinic. And I take all of his money and rings. What? He doesn't need them in rehab. He'll just trade them for moon salts anyway. I'm helping him when you think about it. I got to play as a tiefling bard in a one-shot campaign. He was a lore bard and knew the animate dead spell. He carried around a drum strapped to his back and one strapped to his front. He kept bones and the huge drum on his back. The two skeletons would help him perform out of combat, and of course they were useful in combat. I also tried to theme spells he knew to be as loud as possible. Oh, and he can beat the drum on his back with his tail. I have a buddy from Ireland who played a mage class who could only perform magic when drunk. His character's name was Potatoes Boil Em Mash Em Stick Em in a Stew, and whenever anyone referred to the character, including the DM, they had to say the whole thing. God bless that campaign. Upon first getting into D&D, I convinced our dungeon master to allow me to roll a chaotic neutral muppet cleric. He wasn't happy with the situation at first but agreed that I could do it as long as he couldn't speak English and would only be allowed to converse in Muppetese, a language I'm sure he would make sure would be rarely seen in our world. It didn't matter though, because upon rolling the character and starting our party, one of the other guys in the group decided before leaving town that we should try to rob a town guard just for the hell of it. We tried. We failed. That was the end of my Muppets short tale.
Hi guys, before I go, thanks for watching.